Coming to WhatsApp, because that's the other big thing that's been in the news recently, for a variety of reasons. There were some leaks. There was the terms of use issue that became a problem. We saw the front page ads where Facebook tried to clarify on that. Can you tell us a little bit about the learning experiences off of that, Ajit? Because I mean, WhatsApp is here to stay. We've seen people going in droves to rival apps like Signal, etc. But people are still using WhatsApp in enormous numbers. If I'm not mistaken, 350 million is the number of users that you have in the country at this time as far as WhatsApp is concerned. You've got an audience that's plugged in from all over the country, probably all over the world right now. Can you tell us clearly, Ajit, what the issue was with WhatsApp? Has it been sorted now? How would you address concerns that continue to linger in people's minds about the privacy of WhatsApp? Because that's the one app that truly unites us all in this country.
Absolutely, Shiv. And like I'm sure almost 100% of people in the room, my life is on WhatsApp as well.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I want to say is the commitment to encryption on WhatsApp and privacy is absolute. We cannot read your messages. We cannot read anyone's messages. That's always been true. That will always remain true. And I'll come to explaining sort of what are the learnings from how we rolled out the privacy policy and what we're taking from it. But I think it's important to, without any caveats, be very clear that no one can read the messages. We don't have access to the messages because they're end-to-end encrypted, and therefore that is never at risk. The second part, Shiv, is in many ways, I think the few weeks in January also gave an indication of something that I think at WhatsApp we have known for a long time, that people genuinely care about the privacy and sanctity of their communication. And if there is even an assumption that the messages are not private, then there will be other apps that will provide those alternatives. And I think you mentioned that WhatsApp will always be around. We hope so, but we also know that there is a lot of competition. As much as Facebook as a company has platforms that are large and we benefit from the loyalty of people around the country, and we're deeply embedded in the social fabric of India, I think we have to earn the trust every day. And whenever another service can come up with a better proposition, there's competition, so we don't take that for granted. Now, having said all of this, especially that nothing about the policy changes that the sanctity and encryption of those messages stays, I do want to acknowledge that I think we could have done a better job in terms of how we rolled out the changes in privacy policy. I don't think we did a great job of explaining it, but I want to make a distinction between what the policy does and the intent behind it, and of course, the way in which it was rolled out. And it may not be easy to understand for people who look at this and say, you're a large company. If you're being so clear, why could you not have been this clear early? And one of the things is, in the company with the WhatsApp global teams and products and engineers, the idea that encryption is at the heart, the privacy and sanctity of the messages is at the heart of the service, is so deeply embedded. I think we almost probably forgot that we may need to assert that and clarify that every time.
Yeah.
Because that is so deeply understood that there is never going to be a challenge to it. And I think that our conviction may be limited us from understanding that anytime there are changes, it creates anxiety. The other part that I do want to call out, Shiv, is in the internet world, all platforms have their terms of service, right? We call it privacy policy, TOS, terms of service. One of the things that you saw from WhatsApp was extreme transparency. It was WhatsApp flagging overtly saying, hey, let us tell you what we are doing, in a way that I think actually raised the bar for transparency in the internet. every day there are lots of apps where there are changes to the terms of service, changes to policies. Because the conviction on transparency is so high, WhatsApp as a team said, let's be very clear. But I think as we did that, I think we should have understood that in a world where there is a lot of misinformation, where people are anxious about, what does it really mean in terms of all kinds of different platforms and services on the internet, I think we should have done a much better job of explaining what we did. And what we have done is, from a policy point of view, a lot of the changes were already done in 2016. What we were being more transparent about in January, Shiv, was that when people communicate with businesses, nothing changes on the encryption, but those businesses can have access to tools that allow some of that, the data to be leveraged in a way where I think if you kind of, for example, if I tell you that if you're running a small shop and you're getting inquiries from customers, let's make it easier to build tools so that you can respond to multiple customers at the same time. You would look at it and say, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. So it was hyper transparency, but I acknowledge that I think we could have explained it much better. I think everyone should know that WhatsApp cannot read your messages. Nothing changes about encryption.